gentlemen, it's Smokin' and Toastin'. This is the radio program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. My name is Cruz, and we are thrilled to have you along for show number 152. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. By the way, I spoke to our buddy Jeremiah over at B&B this week, and I think he's got a couple of weeks where he's going to be off on Thursdays, so he is totally planning to pod crash.
Nice.
And I'm so excited.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's always great when you have him on the show.
He's so fun.
Always so. And in fact, we might even go over there to make it easier for him to pod crash.
Oh, there you go.
So we'll see. We'll see how that comes out. I don't know. It's awfully hot to be out
pretty
on the deck smoking cigars right now.
You know, when I look at my phone and it says, oh, it's like 94 degrees with a heat index of 106.
Yeah, that's the thing. The heat index is
and no breeze whatsoever to even speak of.
Yeah, it's not fun. But these are the months. It's about a month and a half stretch here that it's important if you are someone who lives in Houston, as Ian and I both do. It's important for us to have this time, because if we didn't have this time, every moron in every city in the country would be trying to move here. So this is what keeps us from growing too fast.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
because you have to be able to handle this.
We'll slightly complain about this, but then when it comes to the middle of December and we're wearing shorts and sitting on the rooftop patio.
Despite the best efforts of Wasatch Brewing Company, fine brewing company in Utah.
Yes, they make
We've had a number of their beers on the show that have always been terrific, including, by the way, the Polygamy Porter, which we got a great laugh out of and loved the can artwork and loved the beer.
Yes.
Despite their best efforts, they have not been able to convince North Carolina to allow Polygamy Porter to be sold in the state. The beer in question is already being sold in at least 20 other states, including here in Texas, where we are based, including Utah. But it was reported in mid-July that authorities in North Carolina have rejected the beer because, and I quote here, polygamy is illegal. Wasatch has filed an appeal, hoping to argue their case and bring the beer to the state. We'll do our best, they say, to make this available to those folks out in North Carolina, and they'll get to enjoy all of the fantastic Polygamy Porter that we're making here in Utah.
Does that mean that any movie or picture of something that describes something illegal should not be allowed in North Carolina?
Well, yeah. Think of all of the
this is what they're standing on, is a beer called Polygamy Porter.
Right, exactly. You shouldn't be allowed to sell DVDs of like murder on whatever, like anything with murder in the title.
Illegal.
Murder's illegal, right? Yeah. I don't know.
There could be a fear that they're constantly going to be buying 3 at a time, 4 at a time.
It comes in a 6-pack, right?
Yes, it certainly does.
And no one drinks just one.
Yes, that's right. So,
Polygamy Porter, bet you can't drink one.
To me, this is just the perfect example of how far off the rails we have a tendency to go in this country in getting focused on the stupidest things while bigger and more important things are
This is also the
unresolved.
Best marketing for them, because everybody's like, what's this Polygamy Porter?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. In fact, I can tell you, when that kind of marketing thing happens to you, you grab onto it and try to make as much the most
people running across the states buying.
I just get absolutely disgusted by the fact that someone would find this incredibly stupid issue to stand on when there are so many other things
but
that might matter.
It does get attention, though. We're talking about it, so it just goes to show you, I guess. But anyway, I thought it was actually an awesome sort of a story.
How beautiful is bureaucracy?
Yeah, bureaucracy. Did you say bureaucracy?
Bureaucracy. I like that. I didn't say that, but I like that.
New name for the show in case we have to change it again. Wow. Nothing but real, authentic sound effects here on the program, ladies and gentlemen.
We spent the extra money to make that.
Ian has just cracked open Barrier Brewing Company's Barstool Warrior, the collaboration with the band Dream Theater. So this should be very interesting. To see how this one goes down. Dream Theater, for anyone who's not familiar with the band, is definitely a progressive rock act. This is musicians have a tendency to be fans of this, this kind of band.
Not a lot of girls at a Dream Theater show.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not chick rock, that's for sure. but it's they're actually very good. I like Dream Theater.
I do too.
They're definitely accomplished, musicians and writers. And
like
stuff,
those guys are insane. There's actually if you go on YouTube and watch and look up Dream Theater and drummer, they had drummer auditions because their original drummer, I think due to health reasons, stepped out. And
so these guys have been around. I've never heard of them. These guys.
Oh man, yeah, they came out in early '90s.
Yeah, it's definitely early '90s prog rock is what I think.
Early
of it
'90s.
as. Yeah.
They had their biggest hit was "Pull Me Under." Then
"Pull Me Under," which is actually does have a melody, which not all prog rock does.
That's actually
which
probably
is good
one of my favorite songs. Of
theirs. Yeah, I like that one actually. So, well, let's see how they did in the beer category.
Well, I'm watching.
I'm not getting a lot on the nose.
There's not a lot of nose to it at all. Like there's not much going on right there in the in the smell.
It's really okay. Wow. Okay, so I will tell you that my first reaction was just a straightforward lager, and then it had this interesting finish.
There's so many notes.
Yeah,
I'm just joking. That's funny.
There's like lemon. I get lemon.
There's a bit of lemon.
Like
what is the
lemon skin?
What is the scene in the movie Amadeus where he's writing the symphony or whatever for the king, and the king and somebody tells the king there's too many notes in it, and the king says, "Oh well, just take out some of the notes then."
Yes, just leave some out.
Yeah, they just
as easy as
that fixed it. I get almost all of the flavor on the finish. It actually has a return, almost like a spirit will. Where you get the whiskey hug. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Although it's not really a hug, it's more like it's more on the tongue.
This has the finish is very like you said. You're smelling lemon.
Lemony,
it's very lemon citrus on the finish.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of body up front, and the mouth feels a little thin overall.
It's
very drinkable though.
Pretty
very
refreshing.
Summer.
Yeah.
It's, what's the ABV on this one?
I'm going to guess it's fairly low.
Yeah, it doesn't. 5%.
5%? Okay, well.
For
a lager,
Pilsner,
that's
I'd say it's
not too low.
It's quite drinkable. I love the artwork on this thing, by the way.
Did I call this a lager?
I think you might.
And it's actually a Pilsner? My bad, it is a Pilsner.
Artwork on here.
I'm looking at my notes. It's a Pilsner.
No, you're not wrong, technically.
Right, but in terms of the... so here's the part from me that's kind of weird about it, that it comes in one of these tall, like 16-ounce cans, because this almost seems to me like something that should come in a 6-pack or a 12-pack, and you have it by the pool, and it's very crushable and has some nice flavor to it.
Well, but it also, due to the stick-on label here, that's stuck on rather badly, actually, which... that doesn't bother me, by the way. That's just an observation. It's a little crooked and a little wrinkled, but I assume what this is a limited edition that they put out and said we're going to can some of this and make it available. I'll tell you this about this in a can. Overall, I think this is drinkable. I think this would be really good at the brewery on a hot day. Like this would probably be one of my go-tos after I drank whatever incredibly dark malty beers they have, because that's my favorite.
And you're kind of like clearing your palate out a little bit.
And so I would definitely go for this as that. It's probably not my first grab, but it's pretty good. I just think it's lacking a little bit on the front end, but it's got that great finish.
Got a great finish though.
Because even though it has that citrusy finish, it's not a real hoppy finish, and it finishes real clean to me. So
it's kind of interesting. Barrier Brewing, I think of them as one of the companies that has all these super interesting limited release IPAs. They kind of seem, I feel like they specialize more in that style. And it does make me wonder, like I'm always impressed when a brewery that's really known for one thing, and that kind of being their calling card, comes out with a completely different style, and it's really good. Mm-hmm. Like when you try the porter from Stone, who are known, almost exclusively for their IPAs.
Yeah.
And then you try the porter, and you're like, oh wow, they nailed this.
Yes.
Like that's always to me very impressive. If they put out a new IPA, I expect it to be good. Their IPAs are always good.
Yeah, hands down.
Right, but the so I kind of wonder, is it harder for a brewery that specializes in a particular style to break away and do a Pilsner.
I think a good Pilsner is a good lager are some of the hardest styles to make.
I totally agree.
You know,
Stick those things away for 8 weeks and then see what happens.
Yeah, because they're so delicate in general. I will say, after everything I said about this, I did go back for seconds.
I was just about to say, I kind of want more.
Yes.
It's very refreshing.
Here, please.
You know? It's very refreshing. So, so I would think this one is actually growing on us a little bit, which, by the way, is not unlike an album track by Dream Theater. You listen to it at first, you go, well, that's pretty good. Like, clearly there's a lot of great musicianship going on here, but you don't necessarily walk away whistling it. Then if you listen to it, like, 3-4 times, then you're kind of like,
there's a little bit of
that track.
There's a little bit of, and this is going to sound funny, but I mean this in a great way. There's a little bit of fresh cut lawn going on here.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of grassiness to it
but not so much, because that flavor I'm not really a fan of, and it keeps me from liking like St. Arnold's Lawnmower, which has that in abundance. And I love St. Arnold. I just don't like that particular beer, and I have friends who love it. It's their favorite. I
like that beer.
Yeah, but if they had too much of that, they would push me away. They don't overdo it, I think, with this, and I'm liking this better and better.
So I got to tell you, after the first taste of this, like, I think that the more I taste this, the more subtleties are coming out. Actually,
it also may be warming up a little bit.
Yeah.
Which could help.
Like, I'm starting to taste a little more on the very front of this, a little more of the malt profile.
Malt and lemon, which, by the way, go together much better than you might think. Yeah. For sure.
That's a funny thing. So I assume, like, if I was sitting at the brewery having a pint of this, I'm assuming at the beginning of this pint I would probably say pretty much what I said earlier, but by the end of this pint I'd be like, you know what? That's a pretty darn good beer.
If you were sitting at the brewery having a pint of that, you would obviously know that you had parked in the appropriate spot on your way in, right?
There's that.
Okay, good. We'll just let that go then.
You're pushing a story here.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to see that look on your face. That's what I wanted to see.
This.
That's what I wanted to see.
That's a mystery for another time.
Yes, it is, and perhaps many more beers. So, let's start talking a little bit about Trinchero. Michael Gallagher has been a very gracious guest so far and has joined us in talking about other things. We haven't asked you at all about your company, Michael. Trinchero Spirits. This started out, though, not as a spirits company, right? Started out totally as a winery and getting you can go over this, but what people may not be familiar with the name Trinchero, but I bet they're familiar with some of the wines that are done by you guys, correct?
Yeah. So the thing, I work for a great company. Let's just start there. Family-owned company, in the third generation now, coming up into it. And this company, I mean, this family it's the American dream. They came over from Italy in the early 1900s. They worked their way through. They bought a winery in 1946, 1947. Dumped their life savings, the two brothers. And once that was built and set, they couldn't afford to paint the roof, so they left it.
Right.
And the roof said Sutter Home Winery on it. And they toiled along and just kept doing their thing. And fast forward to the 1970s, Bob Trinchero, who's the son of Mario, was known for making Zinfandel, and was making a second run of Zinfandel that had a stalled fermentation. And Bob's in the Smithsonian with his wine, and he created the white Zinfandel category that just took America by storm.
Created a category.
Yeah,
that's pretty big.
Yeah. That's there's a lot of talk about what put Napa on the map worldwide. We talk about the Paris tasting. I think it was 1976. That put Napa on the map, but what put wine on the table was really Sutter Home White Zinfandel, and
you're absolutely right, because there was
drinking it.
Yeah, there was a period of time where that wine was just absolutely everywhere.
Right?
Wasn't and it might still be, I don't know, but wasn't there at least a time during when you're talking about when Sutter Home was the best-selling wine in America?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's amazing if you think how many wines there are.
The amount of cases that we still produce is incredible. It's phenomenal.
And walk me back through this. It was he was basically doing regular Zinfandel, and something happened. One of the processes didn't happen.
From my understanding of wine, and you understand, like I'm a spirits guy,
right?
But, doing a second
Sorry
run.
to be asking you a wine question, but this is interesting.
I'm going to look for text from my boss here in a second.
This was a whole category though that was created because of this thing. So,
basically doing a second wash of the wine and putting yeast in to create the alcohol. And what ended up happening is that yeast kind of stalled out doing their job, and it made a sweeter wine.
Right.
And the family is very much about taking what they have and making it work for them.
Right.
So there wasn't something that they could necessarily sell in the market immediately. So they sold it at their tasting room, and it became very popular just from
people coming in and trying it and enjoying it
and asking for it. And then it became the next step was to get it out and market it.
So when did spirits become part of the company?
So about 6.5 years ago.
That recently?
Yeah,
wow.
that recently.
Wow.
And really the vision for the company with spirits is partnering with like-minded families and small distilleries that have the same values that the Trinchero family has, and producing great product at reasonable prices.
Right.
Which we can look at when we start getting into Amador and tasting it. If we look at the whiskey sector now and the spread, I remember 7-8 years ago, your whiskey selection was maybe in a liquor store, 2 shelves,
right?
2 standing shelves worth of
maybe 10, 12 different brands,
correct.
Tops,
Correct.
Yeah.
And now it's exploded, and everybody's getting a piece now, which is great. There's a lot of bourbons, and a lot of scotches, a lot of Irish whiskeys that are starting to get their due because people are becoming educated, people are venturing out of their comfort zone, and if I like this,
then maybe I should try this.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's great. So that's what we're looking for in the partnership with these distilleries and with the families that own them.
So with like Amador Bourbon, for example, this is not something where you guys went out and built a distillery. You're partnered with someone who's already doing this on an artisan level.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Good.
So the first, we sourced this out about 4 years ago, and we went out and sourced about 600 barrels of 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-old bourbons from Tom Moore Distillery, and we brought that. And the thing is again, we have this whiskey selection now that it's across the board. You really have to do something different to stand out.
That's for sure.
And also not be crazy about it. There's some stuff that's going on out there where you're just like, really? Okay, fine. That's what they want to do.
Lemon meringue bourbon. No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So, large wine company.
Right.
We have hundreds of barrels of used barrels of wine that we go through, and we have barrel programs with other wineries. So we brought the bourbon out from Kentucky, and we started experimenting with different barrels with
finishing it in different barrels.
Exactly. And what we came out with was we used Chardonnay barrels for the finish.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I know that I believe it was Woodford Reserve. They did a Chardonnay finish maybe 7 years ago or so, but
I believe that's right. Yeah.
They only do, I think, a Pinot Noir now, and then their small batch finishes out of there, which are all amazing and good. But we're the only Chardonnay finished bourbon on the market right now.
Fascinating.
Which is it's awesome. We can talk about it all we want, but I'd say we should probably taste it.
I love.
I'm for it.
I love talking about bourbon.
Yeah.
But yeah,
ooh, did you hear that nice pop
did.
right there?
See, I did see that was perfectly in line with our normal high standards for authentic sound effects. But yes, I enjoy talking about bourbon, but not nearly as much as I enjoy drinking bourbon. So that's a good thing.
This has a great nose to it.
Yes,
like an absolutely wonderful nose to it. You get a lot of. There's a little honey kind of smell in there.
I'm going to guess that probably has something to do with the Chardonnay barrel finish.
Yeah,
that would give it that sort fruitiness. That sort of very pleasant note. I like it.
Yeah, there's you get the I'm definitely a bourbon smell. There's a light, almost fruity kind of thing going on. There's a honey kind of on the nose. There's maybe cinnamon.
One of the things I really like about you get a lot of earth spice out of this.
Yes, you do.
One of the things that the first time that I tasted this and smelled it, I got bananas Foster's, and like a
the bananas
cooked banana or plantain,
Right.
that kind of roastedness to it, which is
it's got
really
a
nice.
richness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing with bourbon and what we really wanted to go for was a bourbon that was approachable.
Well, yes, you nailed that.
That
because
is dangerously smooth.
yes,
Yeah.
you nailed that because what you get on the first blush is almost too approachable.
Holy cow.
You kind of go, wow, this cannot be this easy to drink.
The finish on this, you said the bananas Foster. The finish on this is that bananas Foster and then like graham cracker.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
But you do get the whiskey hug.
Yes.
Right at the end, and it gives you it actually is almost a return. And when you get it, you're like, oh, okay, I did just have a bourbon. Like
So to that point, a lot of times when I do tastings, at liquor stores or at where we all met at the Houston Whiskey Social, there's an initial from really solid hardcore bourbon drinkers. There's an initial, they swallow it, and I've had it a number of times where they say too sweet, and then they stop.
Yes,
right. To your point, that bourbon hug comes, and they're like, "Ooh,
right. Well, what you
let
get?
me revisit this."
No, you're absolutely right. And what I was going to say is this is almost like too easy to drink. And then here came the warmth. Here came that little whiskey hug.
It's because
okay, I get it now. Yeah.
The initial taste on this has no heat. There's a little spice,
Right.
But almost
some great
no
flavor
heat until after you swallow, and
it kind of comes back.
And then it comes back as a whiskey hug, and then it's absolutely delightful on the end of this. That graham cracker is killing me. I love that. It's like this may sound a little funny, but if you leave your graham cracker out just a little too long, it gets a little soft. It's just a hair stale. That's perfect. And it's so good.
I like that.
Like that's oddly specific. I know.
All you're doing is taking a really bad situation with a graham cracker and putting a positive spin on it. But
I was going to say, and making it even worse. So. But no, I'm with you on this. And you said bananas Foster, and I don't know if I would have articulated that, but boy is it correct.
And I mean, it's for
it's that sort of burnt, toasted banana
caramelization, and that's
flavor.
it's a really, for the people that are listening, by no stretch of the imagination is the whiskey sweet. That's the really hard thing to really.
It's smooth more than sweet.
Yes,
it does have a little bit of a honeyed vibe to it on the tongue,
beginning of the palate.
But it's not a sweet. It's not sugary at all.
Yeah.
Right.
It's more like the smoothness of honey. I think it's delicious. Like dangerously delicious.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's reminds me a bit of the Skelly, the tequila that we like so much. It's just so easy to drink.
Right. Well, it's
kind of dangerous.
It's interesting too because you get a little bit of that malty bourbonness in the middle of the flavor. It starts with honey to me. You get a little of that malty bourbonness, and then it goes with baking spice and bananas and graham cracker to me on the end, and then comes back with that hug. This is a fun whiskey too because it does a lot of things.
I like that you're saying it that way. It totally is a fun whiskey. It's not all whiskeys, including some very, very good ones,
are fun to drink.
Are fun.
I totally
but
agree
this
with
is
you on
totally
that.
fun.
What is the price point on a bottle of this?
$39.99.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It just got even more fun.
Yeah.
The mash bill on this 15% corn, or 15% wheat. So it's a wheated bourbon. 5% rye, 5% barley. The remainder is corn.
So when Trinchero went out to, looking to partner up with distilleries and do things, and I'm guessing you probably went to a number of different ones.
Correct,
and this is the one you settled on.
Yeah,
I can totally see one.
Also, I think I wasn't part of that, but at the time when they went, it was hard to buy bourbon, straight Kentucky bourbon, because it was, let's look at, it was 6 years ago, kind of when we started.
And it's changed that much in that length of time, hasn't it?
And getting bourbon has become something that's, people kind of realized what they had and were like not parting with it very easily.
Yeah.
So, finding someone that understood what we were going for and understood, the family's vision and what we wanted to create.
No one was willing to partner with that.
Right. Now, fast forward, we can't get bourbon from them anymore, but we have partnered with another family-owned distillery in Kentucky that is already laying down our next round of bourbons that are going to be coming out. We're going to be doing so this will be 2021. We'll be doing our wheated bourbon finished in Chardonnay. We'll be doing 15% rye bourbon that's finished in Cabernet, and then we'll be doing a 74% rye that's finished in port barrels that the family has done.
I bet that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
So will this spirit continue to be available, or is
This will.
Be,
This
okay.
will. So there'll be a small break where we have some where you're going to be using our Kentucky whiskey with Indiana whiskey and making our whiskey for about a year to cover that time frame when the stuff comes off of aging in Kentucky.
That's so fascinating to me that you've got a master distiller that can actually sink the flavor, can get back to the flavor that you want.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Watching somebody blend a whiskey is impressive. I mean, we all have pretty educated palates. I'd say a majority of the public has an educated palate now, but to watch somebody with a hyper aware and sensitive
supernatural.
palate. Yeah,
well,
it is.
I just remember being that impressed when we met Dave Pickrell from Whistle Big, the late Dave Pickrell, how you could just tell when he would describe the process. He's got an understanding of this and a palate that can appreciate it and suss it out. That's so far beyond what the average person can. So, so I would think you would almost have to have that to be, a true master distiller. You would have to be able to get those nuances and understand. Plus, that what it's going to taste like is completely different from what it's going to taste like when it's aged. So it's fascinating. Well, this is great. I want to talk some more about this, but I also want to have a vermouth conversation.
I love it. I love it. I love changing people's mind on vermouth.
And so we will get to that. Plus, okay. I don't know if we got to talk about the artificial tongue. I'm just looking at the list of things we could potentially talk about.
I'm curious what this is.
The artificial tongue. We got to talk about that. So we'll get to that next as well. And we still have some beers to try too. Anchorage Brewing's Pie Assassin IPA will be next. It's Smoking and Toasting. We'll be right back.